Good evening, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. Well, today we're going to continue Star Trek Timber 2018 with Lonely Among Us. So, here we go. The Enterprise is en route to the planet Parliament with delegates from two warring planets in the Beta Runner system, the Reptilian Sile and the Canine Antiken, when the ship encounters a strange energy cloud. Unseen by the crew, Lieutenant Worf is hit with a strange energy discharge as the ship passes the cloud, which causes him to become violent. Dr. Beverly Crusher sedates Worf and brings him to the sickbay, but is also infused with energy as she examines his body. Crusher begins to act oddly to those around her and goes to the bridge, asking questions about the ship's navigational functions. She questions Lieutenant Commander Data at one of the science stations. The energy sparks between her and the console, leaving her confused as to why she's on the bridge. The ship suddenly begins to malfunction, and Captain Picard sends Assistant Engineer Singh to investigate the cause. Singh is later found dead near a computer link, and Picard orders a murder investigation, considering the alien delegates to be the prime suspects. Data investigates the murder in the manner of fictional detective Sherlock Holmes, and determines that the delegates were not responsible. Meanwhile, Counselor Deanna Troi uses hypnosis in both Worf and Crusher, finding that both recall being invaded by some entity during their blackouts. The ship suddenly drops again out of warp, and as Picard investigates the readouts at a bridge console, the strange energy transfers into him. The bridge crew becomes suspicious of Picard's actions after noting that all Enterprise systems are back to normal and that Picard has ordered them to return to the cloud. Senior officers attempt to plead with Picard to undergo a medical examination and to step down from command, but he refuses. When they return to the cloud, Picard announces that they had picked up an entity previously when they passed the cloud, and that Picard and the entity are one. Under its influence, Picard plans to transport himself back into the cloud, and he shoots energy at the bridge crew when they try to stop him. The crew are unable to prevent Picard from beaming off the ship. The crew spend hours trying to locate Picard to no avail, so they are forced to accept he is beyond recovery and prepare to leave. However, Troi senses the captain's essence nearby, and Picard manages to signal the crew through the ship's computers. Data is able to reverse the transport, reconstituting Picard without the entity. Yay! After determining that Picard is himself again, liking the memories since he was taken over by the entity, the Enterprise continues on to Parliament. Well, that's good. Anyway, let's look at some production notes here, shall we? The original story by Michael Halperin contained a different subplot involving a problem with the dilithium in the warp drive of the Enterprise. The diplomatic conference was added by D.C. Fontana when it was developed into a teleplay. Fontana previously worked on Star Trek the original series, including the episode Journey to Babel. Lonely Among Us was subsequently compared to Journey to Babel, which Fontana denied, saying, quote, "I wrote Journey to Babel and I wrote this too, and I feel there is a difference. There's a definite delineation and separation here, both in intent and content. Director Cliff Bole did not recall much of the episode later, but did not think much of the script, saying, quote, the subject matter affects the end product. There's some better written shows, obviously. It was the first episode of The Next Generation to be directed by Bole, who had previously worked on shows such as V and The $6 Million Man. Cole Meany made a second appearance in The Next Generation after he originally appeared in the pilot Encounter at Farpoint, as a con ensign on the bridge. In this episode, he played security ensign, as it was not until Season 2 that he began to play the recurring character Miles O'Brien, who would later become a series regular in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Another Deep Space Nine actor who made his first Trek appearance in this episode was Mark Alaimo, who played an Antiken who was unnamed on screen, but is referred to in the script as Badar NDD. Alaimo went on to play several other roles in The Next Generation, including as the Cardassian Gul Macet in The Wounded, before being cast as Gul Dukat in DS9. John Durbin appeared as the Slay leader and would also go on to appear as a Cardassian later in the series, Gul Lamek in Chain of Command. Kavi Ras played Assistant Engineer Singh, although as he was unavailable for a reshoot, in one scene he was replaced by a wig on a chair. Okay then. The Selayan Antikins were nicknamed the Snakes and the Dogs by the production staff. The designs were created by Andrew Probert, who had previously been responsible for the design of the Enterprise D. The makeup used on them were created by supervisor Michael Westmore, which involved full headpieces and hands for 2 Antikins and 5 Selays. Because of the limited space available, the Antikins were made internally in the Paramount makeup studio, while the Selays were outsourced to a different studio to sculpt the head. Interesting. Once completed, a mold was made of the Selay a mold was made of the Selay head, and the unpainted pieces were cast in latex and sent to Westmore to complete. It was intended to cast them out of lightweight polyurethane, but the first batch of Selay heads came out very heavy. Westmore had time to recast 2 of the heads from soft foam rubber, but as each took 5 hours to make, there was not enough time to remake all 5. The heavier versions of the Selay heads were worn by actors in the background scenes, although Westmore described them as being, quote, very uncomfortable. The Antikin mask didn't allow for any movement at all, with the exception of the actors being able to poke their tongues through the mouth opening. Although this is the only major appearance of either the Antikins or the Selay, they continue to be used as background extras in other episodes of The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. Westmore repainted the Selay masks prior to reusing them in order to give the scales more of a 3-dimensional look. This was the first appearance of the Next Generation era Starfleet dress uniforms. They were based on those used by the Royal Navy in the 18th century, but will be slightly altered when they reappear during Season 2. One piece of a costume introduced in this episode, which never returned, was a surgical cap and eyepiece worn by Dr. Crusher. Interesting. So overall, a pretty run-of-the-mill episode, I guess I could say, but the whole thing about Picard being taken over the Entity does sound very familiar if you're a fan of a certain internet reviewer who talks about comic books a lot. Well, anyway, this is a pretty interesting episode, so, yeah. So overall, I give Lonely Among Us 3 warp cores out of 5. Well, join me in a little bit or so as we take a look at Justice! So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.